Hello everyone and welcome to Louise Singleton Creations and another Sunday creation video. This week I was in the mood to make something very beautiful but very simple. I usually enjoy exploring ideas and being adventurous, but then again, sometimes it's nice to just know that what you're going to make is guaranteed to turn out beautiful. And this was one of those occasions. I still had some artificial flowers left, and I think they work really well in resin. So that's what I decided to use, and with my trusty cuboid silicone mould from Let's Resin, I decided to make a beautiful resin nightlight. If you're interested in seeing the process, stay tuned and enjoy the video. So here's the mould I'm using today. It's the largest in a set of 3 from Let's Resin, and it comes with the wooden mould housing which you just need to slot together. Links and discount codes will be in the video description as always. The flowers that I'm using today are artificial flowers, mostly fabric, but there's some plastic in there as well. And they're really beautiful artificial flowers. You do get what you pay for with them. I got these from a shop we have here called Dunelm, and they have a really beautiful selection. So what you can see me doing here is having a practice with my flowers. Before I start mixing up resin and putting resin into the mould, I wanted to know exactly which flowers I would be planning on using and where each flower would go. It's good to be organised when you're going to be using resin, otherwise it could get really messy if you start doing all your arranging later on and changing your mind. You're going to get very messy. So what I like to do is get it all planned, take a photograph of it, then carefully take it all out again before I start with the resin. So yeah. Now everybody knows that resin works really well with dried flowers, real flowers. And yeah, especially if you've got special flowers from a wedding or some other occasion that you want to preserve. And so that's why it does make sense to use real flowers. But there's nothing to stop you using artificial flowers, especially if you're just making a decoration and there's no sentimental value. There are benefits to using artificial over real flowers, and the main benefit is they keep the colour very well. And then the second benefit is they're so strong. They're not going to start falling to bits as you move them around in the resin. And you did hear me say at the beginning, I was in the mood to make something simple and foolproof. And, real flowers can be difficult, especially if you don't get them dried out well enough. You can get problems with them. So this is a much simpler way, especially if you're just a beginner. I would recommend having a go with artificial flowers first. Once I was happy with the arrangement, I took my photograph and then carefully took them all out so that they were ready and in a safe place for when it was time to add them to the resin. So I'm going to be filling the mould in 2 layers. The first layer is going to be very shallow, and for that I'm using the fast cure resin from Let's Resin. I've already warmed some up in my resin warmer because the fast cure one can be very thick and bubbly, and so it does help if you pre-warm it first. That's why it's in glass bottles. I have those because they fit nicely in the resin warmer. There are so many different tools available for you if you're starting out on your resin journey. All different kinds of things which make life a lot easier. But I always like to emphasize the fact that they're not essential. They're just a really useful option. And so here's another one that I'm using. And this is also from Let's Resin, and it's the automatic mixer. I've filled my cup quite a lot there. And because the resin is such a high viscosity resin, the cup was wanting to move around. Normally it doesn't, but yeah, this one did, and so I kept hold of it. Because the fast cure resin is quite bubbly, I put it into my bubble remover machine for about 10 minutes and that sorted that out very nicely. And once again, it is completely optional, but I think this is probably my favourite tool that I've got from Let's Resin so far. However, I do have quite an exciting one on the way to me at the moment. It's in the post, I can't wait to receive it, but you will be seeing a very new tool from Let's Resin very soon on this channel. So with the resin mixed and the bubbles removed, all that was left to do was to very carefully pour it into the mould. And I say carefully because if you do it too quickly, you're just going to introduce more bubbles into the mixture. And then using my photograph for reference, I once again arranged my flowers inside the mould. The reason I'm adding the flowers onto the thin layer of fast cure resin is just to anchor them down so that when I pour in my deep pour resin afterwards, they won't float to the top. Everything will stay in position, theoretically anyway. I'm trying my best to make sure that everything is touching the resin so it does indeed get anchored down. After about 4 hours, the first layer of resin was cured enough for me to add the next layer of resin on top. And the next layer is actually going to be the final layer. I'm filling it all up in one go with Let's Resin's deep pour resin. It's a 2-to-1 mixing ratio, which makes it a very thin, low viscosity resin, and it takes a lot longer to cure, which is a very good thing because it gives it plenty of time for any micro bubbles trapped inside those flowers to rise to the surface. However, one thing I didn't prepare for was the fact that the weather was very hot. The room temperature was high. I'm not sure exactly how high, but higher than I'm used to. And I hadn't thought about the fact that the resin would cure a lot faster. In this instance, it took 1 day for this deep pour resin to cure rather than the 2 days that I normally leave it for, which resulted in some micro bubbles in the finished piece, but not to worry, it didn't ruin it. I still think it was beautiful. The thing is, I was being a little bit lazy as well, and I hadn't thought about the fact that it was going to cure quickly. And yeah, I didn't put this through my bubble remover machine. Like I say, I was being lazy. The jug was too big to fit in the machine, and I didn't want to mucky up a different container by, splitting it into 2 and doing 2 lots. But I really should have done. I should have put it through my bubble remover machine. But yeah, that's hindsight for you. I can't see into the future, and I hadn't thought about the fact that the room was just too hot and it was going to end up being bubbly. Okay then, so once it was thoroughly mixed, I poured it all in. I did discover that I had a little bit left, so what I decided to do was take one of my sphere moulds, also from, guess what, Les Resin, as is everything in today's video. Yeah, I took the little sphere mould and squeezed one of the flowers into it. It was a bit tough to get the flower in. But yeah, once I got that in, I filled it up with resin and a couple of the leaves as well, just to give it a little bit more interest. So here we are, it's the next day and it was surprisingly ready. I'd got up that morning thinking, well, if there's any bubbles that have come to the top, I'll go and get rid of them. It'll still be quite runny. Thinking there'd be another day left, but no. And yes, there were some bubbles too. But anyway, I've waffled about that enough. Let's just have a look to see how it turned out. So my first impressions were very good. I loved the composition, I loved the brightness of the artificial flowers, and I thought it looked really pretty. I could see that there was the old micro bubble problem, which I've mentioned several times now. I know I'm a little bit obsessed with bubbles, aren't I? And there's always people in the comments saying, but it makes it look even better to have those micro bubbles. So don't obsess about it so much, but I still obsess. Anyway, it looks good, doesn't it? Yeah, I really do like that. As I said, I'm going to be making it into a nightlight by putting it onto a rectangular light base, and that is when the problem will be a little bit more apparent. But before we do that, let's get this one out the mould. Now, spheres are notoriously difficult to demold, and what I would recommend is to get some soapy, warm water and try to get just a little bit down the side by stretching the side of the mould just to get a little bit of water in. You don't need much. Then once the water's in, you can move it around by massaging all around it, and you can see there how it's spreading and the mould's coming away from the surface of the resin. And once it's fully come away from the surface of the resin, you'll be able to dry the mould, dry your hands, and then squeeze and then the mould will eventually just squeeze off. It's kind of hard to explain, but I'm sure just by watching you can see exactly what I'm doing. And this is quite hard to see the detail on camera, but I really love how it turned out. I think it's really lovely and I love the colour of it. And as you can see, there's some glitter at the base there that you didn't actually see me adding. And that's because when it was cured, the level had gone down quite far and it needed topping up. So I just got some UV resin, mixed it with the glitter and poured it in, then put it under the UV lamp. It's just a quicker way of filling it up if that happens. And yeah, I quite like it with a little bit of glitter at the bottom. And as a way of using up excess resin, I think it was quite a success. Okay, it's time to have a look at it on the light base. It would have been better in the dark, but then it would have been harder to film it. But anyway, you'll get the gist of it, even in the daylight. And yeah, let's just have a look at the clarity before it's on the light base. And that looks great, doesn't it? No problem at all. And you could be fooled into thinking it was perfect. Well, almost. Let's see what happens when you put the light under it. And there, yeah. I think it kind of, in a way, all those micro bubbles just look glittery, don't they? And it just gives it a bit of sparkle. I'm just being too self-critical. I do realise that. It's not as bad as I think. And yeah, overall, I think it's a success. I did go back to it when it was a little bit darker, just to see if I could capture it a bit better on camera. Yeah, so it's a really nice nightlight, isn't it? I think it will look really good. And I've learned my lesson, haven't I? When it's very, very, very hot weather, unless you can cool the room down, don't do a resin that needs to be clear, like deep pour, like this, because it will cure super quick and not very clear. It's such a shame because this was supposed to be my simple, foolproof project for a nice, easy week, and it didn't quite turn out foolproof, did it? Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Nevertheless, please do give it a thumbs up if you did and subscribe if you would like to. All links and discount codes will be in the video description, and I will see you again next time. Thank you for watching and bye for now.